We're here at Martin Station, and I've got Maggie here with me. She's been explaining all these laundry processes in previous videos, but it turns out that one of the great things about 18th century laundry is it's a lot more complex, not only in its mechanics, but in the chemistry, right?
Indeed.
So tell me about these amazing chemicals that are being used in the 18th century laundry.
Laundry program, I will. The first thing and the thing that most people are familiar with is the soap.
Right.
Of course, we're using lye soap. In our period of time, we're using that mainly made from ashes from the fire with water run through it that leaches out the lye, and then mixing the lye water with grease. We prefer tallow, which would have come from beef or deer, but you can use lard for that, and we'll render the fat and then take the water from the ashes and put it together, and after cooking it for a number of hours, you get this kind of a situation. Now here on the frontier, our soap is soft like this. It's going to be very goopy along the line, like mashed potatoes. Actually, that has a little bit of water in it, but it's still very soft. It will not form to a bar. And people are more familiar with the bar soap, but the difference between the two is that you've got to have salt in order to make it bar up like this. And at least on the frontier, we don't have that. Now back in the colonies, you're getting bar soap, cake soap. It's being brought in from France with perfume in it. It's being made, but if I was making it just out here to do my laundry, I would prefer to have the soft soap. And the difference between the two is this is from the lye, you're getting nothing but potassium hydroxide. And today's soap makers, the lye that they're using already has that sodium in it, and it's sodium hydroxide, so it makes a bar instead. But the stain removers, you know, what do you do? As much as I can do ahead of time is what I want to do, so that I have less working and rubbing and beating and all that. So we have a number of different recipes that we have found in not only the servant directories that had little laundry information in the back, but also in the cookbooks in the back. How to get stains out of linen, how to get paint out of linen. And they have a number of different things. Milk is one of the things they use. They use bran a great deal. But here are some that I have here that are particular that I could use. One of the things that we can use is pearl ash, and that is a very cooked down lye, so it's a very pure, very strong
potassium carbonate.
That's right, to do that.
You could use that in baking, you use it apparently in laundry too.
Exactly, in laundry too. We use also here in the laundry, you see it more potash, which is the lye breakdown or the ash breakdown. We use alum, which again you're going to be using in the baking. And that is also a stain remover. In fact, you'll see a lot of the cooking things cross over, like the isinglass that we talked about earlier. You've got borax, which is a little harder to come by, but it is here. Soda, washing soda is also here at that time.
Sodium carbonate.
Indeed. You've got vinegar, and that's something that's going to be used quite a bit for a number of different kinds of stains, particularly things that are like green or grass or berries, that type of thing. You're going to see vinegar being used for that. And of course lemon juice, if I can get it. Lemon juice was used to take out berry stains in particular. But now what do I do? That's all fine and good, but when I get to the colored clothes, I can't use my bleaching, and I have to be careful about what stain removers.
The color,
it will change the color. So what we preferred at that period of time was ox gall, and that is actually the bile from the gall bladder of an ox. Now, the book that I got this from said you could use he-goat too, but it wasn't quite as good. So I guess it was a particular thing. But ox gall not only got stains out of colored clothes, but it supposedly brightened the colors of these natural dyes that they were using at this period of time without harming them at all. So it worked very much like your Clorox 2 does today. Then what about wool? That wool I'm not going to put in my boiling water over there. I boil it right away. So we have to find something that will take
got a big
stains.
grease spot. What do I do?
What are we going to do about that? Well, the wool men that make the wool are called fullers, and they found a particular type of clay dirt that is very good at making a paste and putting in that grease spot, and it will actually draw the stains out of wool and dry, and you brush it off. So it's very much like an early dry cleaning. And
in fact, wools you don't wash necessarily.
Don't wash like
you
that.
brush
Not like
them
that.
clean. You use different things like that. You brush it clean and
exactly. And you certainly don't rub it around because in the water, because you'll full it out even thicker, and you don't want to do that. Pipe clay dust, taking an old clay pipe and grinding it down, works somewhat the same way, but it's not quite as good as the Fuller's earth. This is known today by another name, and people put it in their flower beds.
Diatomaceous earth.
That's right. So those are all things, those are just a few of the things that I can use to try to get stains out before we actually get started. But bleaching, whites are the things that you're going to really be working the hardest at.
That's the main thing.
The main linens are going to be white. Your tablecloths, your bedspreads, all of those things are going to be heavy linen. So it's trying to get them white is what we're going to be shooting for. And as a washerwoman, that's going to be my main job. So I have the bleaching that I do what stain removing I need to. I put them in the boiling pot. I can bleach them with ashes from the fire.
So we got ashes here.
We got ashes right here. I can bleach them with the stale urine that we call chamber lye. It also is called lant or wheaten. The reason it's called chamber lye is because you wanted to get it out of the chamber pot first thing every morning. The rest of the day, it's too watery.
Oh, okay.
So the night urine
you want
is when
concentrated.
You want the concentrated urine. And you would take that and put it somewhere in a kettle outside so that it's exposed to the air. And when you expose urine to the air for the oxygen for a couple of weeks, it turns into ammonia, very strong ammonia.
Right.
So that's the bleaching power that we're going to be using with that, the stain remover. And it
so
does
we
a
can
very
use
good
ashes.
job.
We can use urine. There's a third way to do bleach, right? What is it?
There is. Once you get done with all the washing and you have your whites, to lay them out on green anything, preferably grass, and lay them in the sun like that is going to be a very strong bleaching. Not only is the sun doing the bleaching coming down from the top, but the grass itself, because of the oxidation that is going through, the photosynthesis, is actually going to be pushing up some of that oxygen through our clothes and whitening them a little from the bottom.
Both directions,
both
it's getting
directions
whitened.
From that.
How long would things stay out whitening?
Well, just for us, if I was just doing the laundry for you today, then I might not leave it out more than just the day.
Okay.
But in the colonies, there were people that were called whitesters, and their job was to whiten linen. And you would give your white linen, your white clothing to them, your heavy linens, about every couple of months or so, and they would keep them for 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
And then bring them back bright and white. And they would use a lot of the process that I'm showing you here, but they would leave them out into the sun on the green for a much longer period of time.
So if it's not sun shining outside and we still want to get our whites white, what's the process here?
Well, this is called bucking. And this was something that could have been done at the beginning of the wash as opposed to the boiling, or it's something that could be done even on the indoors on a bad day. It looks like it might rain and we might not be able to do the laundry as we would like to have it done. So we would take a tub, one of our wooden tubs like this, that was usually called a buck tub, and we put a heavy linen cloth across it called a bucking cloth, and then we would put about 2 inches worth of ashes on top of old ash. And we would set this up close to our fireplace and hang our kettle inside and then heat water in there till it was almost boiling. And then take a nice big mug and dip it in that hot water and pour it across these ashes. And as the water goes through the ashes and through the cloth into the clothing that's underneath, which we would put only whites in there now. And you'd put your heavier stuff at the bottom and your lighter stuff at the top. But as it goes through that, it's going to leach out the lye that's in the ashes. And that lye water will drip through. And we would keep doing that with that hot water until the tub was full. And then we would let it sit until it cooled, pull the bung out and let the water run out and reheat it and do it again. And we would continue to do this for anywhere from 12 to maybe even 24 hours overnight. And that way, when we got done, we would have very, very white bleached clothes as we brought them out. And we could actually just rinse them even with a little soap or without at that period of time, and they would be ready to wear.
And it also sends that bleaching compound down into a diluted water bath so it doesn't splotch it or do strange things. Right. So a very slow and kind of a gentle way to do it.
Very gentle.
Because it's not being agitated.
We don't want to over-lye them. We don't want to continue with the lye bath. And you also have to use clean water occasionally because the water that goes down in there with it's going to get dirty. So you want to change that out.
Keep washing it through.
But it is a constant process that could be done, but it was a very good way to bleach or seep or buck, as they say, the clothes.
one of the most fascinating parts of making things white is the bluing. Explain the bluing real quick for us.
And why it works. Because we all know that if you put blue on white, it makes it blue.
Yeah,
right?
you would think.
So why does this make things whiter? Well, it has to do with our eyes and the way we see color. You see, white is not a color, but it wants to be a color so bad. Even though it's the absence of all colors, it would really like to be a color. And the favorite color it tends to want to be is yellow. So as your whites get older, they begin to go sometimes grayish, but a lot more times yellowish.
Yeah.
So how do you bring them back out of that yellow to make them white again? Well, the only way you can do that is to go from the one end of the spectrum where the yellow is to the opposite end of that spectrum where this bright blue is. And taking that bright blue and putting that over that yellowish white, where your eyes then begin to see the blue hue instead, makes your eyes think that it has come back to being white again.
So how do we blue things in the 18th century?
In the 18th century, like I said in the first video, you have, first of all, it's done with smalt is the oldest thing, which is a ground up blue cobalt glass. And it's ground very, very fine into a very fine powder like that. And it was usually mixed with the starch. And you could, as you took the little brick of starch that you would get from Poland, which was the best place to get starch, you would shave it off and it would put enough bluing in the water to be able to do both your starching and your bluing at the same time. By the time we get though to the Revolution, we've begun to get other bluings. We have a Prussian blue that has come out. We have a fig blue. We have a thumb blue. We have other blues that are coming along. In fact, in the records of Mount Vernon, where George Washington was, we can see where he ordered different kinds of bluing for his laundresses to do. And one of the new ways is the indigo bluing. In fact, they would take indigo sometimes and mix it with starch and make little chunks about a nut size, and they called that thumb blue. So you have different kinds of bluings, and you actually have a new bluing that's being made in England that's called an aquamarine. That was the one that they liked the best. And there was a company named Ricketts that began to make that, and they still make it today. So you can buy a Rickett bluing at that time. But that's going to coat that yellow white. It's going to make your eyes think that things have gotten whiter because it pulls it back to the other end of that spectrum. So it's a fooler thing. Really, it doesn't make it white, it just makes our eyes think that.
So it's like there's a whole chemistry class going on in 18th century laundry. I would have never have thought that thinking about laundry, because we think of it as really a pretty simple process, but it's very complex with lots and lots of chemicals. Thank you so much for explaining all this multitude of what's going on there. If you're interested in more laundry, make sure to check out this video.